It's November 9th, 2017. John, I put out the question on Investitute, where we post all of our trades during the day, and I said, does anybody have any questions for the podcast? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm in the truck riding up West Side Highway, just as we were last week, just about the same time when, of course, that horrible that horrible terrorist attack occurred.
It's only been a week, hasn't it?
I know.
I guess
time's flying, but yeah, some of those things you don't forget so quickly.
I know, and then we had that shooting. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. That's crazy. That's insane. All right, so anyway, I got some questions. Wally Act, A-K-T, I hope I pronounced that right, says, you should do a charity dinner at the Hunt and Fish Club, support a Lyme disease, a Lyme charity of their choosing.
We've done that. We've done a bunch of them. I think now we're up to like 2 or 3 of them that we've done. You know, the highest one for Lyme disease went for like $64,000. One for ALS last week, and that was a relative bargain. It went for I think that one was for 2 people, and it went for 12, and it was to benefit ALS and muscular dystrophy.
That's a good amount that you got. Okay, so then the other questions.
Well, yeah, and all of that went to charity, by the way. Hunt and Fish was nice enough. They even donated the dinners at the restaurant after Fast Money. The new one that we just did this past week, we didn't complete it yet, but the person that bought it paid, I think, $12,800, Andrew, for Wings Over Wall Street. That's that ALS charity. That one's going to be at Le Cirque, that dinner, and they donated that one, the dinner. So, again, all of the money. Nothing goes to John or Pete, of course. It's all 100% goes to the charity.
But he has other questions. Mike Rudge says, opinions on the financials like BAC and C. Lee Lesner wants to know about Netflix. Wally, the person asked about the Lyme, he wants to know about MAC calls. And then one other question here, which is more timely, was do you have any positions going into Disney tonight? So I don't know if you want to tackle that.
I'll hit the last one first.
Okay.
Right now, I don't have any positions in Disney. I think Thor Ragnarok is good. In fact, great as far as box office. But it's obviously not in these numbers. And I think that the ESPN numbers are going to just be stinky because of the protests with the NFL and so forth, and protests with their own broadcasters on ESPN, because they've turned it into a political, circus instead of just being about sports.
So
but
nothing in Disney.
So I have no position right now in Disney, Andrew. That's one of the reasons I have no position, is I fear that the NFL numbers, which we've cited all year as being crazy bad, are not getting better. Some of the movies, like the new Star Wars, The Last Jedi, or Thor Ragnarok, are not in this count. They're not in this quarter's numbers. So nothing in Disney. Love the bank still. We've not managed to break through that, upside that Jeff Gunlock spoke of, around that 255, 260 yield on the 10-year. We came off of it pretty hard, came all the way back down to 230, I think, Andrew. And it just seems like we're just languishing there. Obviously, depending on how far out the tax cuts for the corporates get pushed out, I think the interest rates would go lower if they're pushed out rather than higher, because a lot of that inflation potential goes out the window for a while if indeed these guys don't have the extra money to spend on various expansions of their offering. That's kind of my outlook on that.
And then how about Netflix?
Got nothing right now in Netflix. I don't think it's good that they lose one of their best shows in terms of viewers, and that was, of course, Kevin Spacey's, House of Cards. Granted, it was nearing the end of its run, but to have them cut it in mid-stride, that can't be a good thing. They basically have to not so much kitchen sink it, meaning throw all the bad stuff at it at once, but maybe Reed Hastings, the CEO, has to get a little more realistic about some of the costs and so forth, especially if he doesn't have a big leader pulling the load like House of Cards was.
And are you doing that's pretty much all the questions from the board. Thank you, Investitute guys, for listening. Smash a like.
Thank you, guys.
We'll try and get as many podcasts up as when we can. Are you doing any trades today?
Did Signet, the jeweler,
I
SIG.
saw that. They only gave me a second on TV for that. That's the jewelers.
We got cut off by Mark Cuban, but Mark actually was making some sense instead of some of the times when he's on there and he just seems like such a, windbag. But I thought he made some sense today, so I didn't mind that he cut into our show. Obviously, he's speaking out there at DealBook or something like that conference, and he was being interviewed by Sorkin. But I liked it. I traded that Signet, SIG. I did it because they bought, I think it was the 8590, Andrew. But if I'm wrong, it was the 8085. They did it about 5,000 times, the spread, 1-to-1, vertical spread. So, again, that's a smart investor who understands time decay, wants upside exposure, but isn't asking the stock to do all that much versus people that, sometimes people buy out of the money stuff and end up flushing their cash, and then they say, well, options are a casino. That's usually because they're not using them right. This looks like a guy or gal who's using options the way they should be used.
Okay, let's switch gears. Since you said the word casino, as you know, during the day, I've been over at the Bitcoin casino. I mean, it trades like a casino. It's real. I mean, we'll get that off the table.
Oh, yeah.
Fan of that.
Did you see that tweet I put out about Larry Fink, Andrew?
No. Well, which one?
Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, world's largest asset manager, basically came out and yet another guy who doesn't get it and was making negative comments on Bitcoin.
Really?
And, for all those guys, I will give you an awful lot of people at events that I'm at that aren't just, millennials with, barely 2 shekels to rub together. There are a lot of folks with pretty significant amounts of money in these cryptocurrencies, and they don't think it's over yet, and neither do I. No. So Larry Fink or Jamie Dimon or anybody else, they better be treading lightly on this. They're entitled to their opinions, but the more people that short it, it's just like all those folks that have been short Netflix all the way up, Andrew.
I think, one of the things that will be good for us going forward is when the CME and the CBOE start trading derivatives around Bitcoin, and then we'll have a better idea how we can use those to hedge our positions. I spoke to Russell Rhodes over at the CBOE yesterday. I said, what's the deal? Who's in charge of this? Who's doing the Bitcoin? And he said they just got their paper yesterday. And I said, who you guys clearing through? What bank? I mean, because there's so many moving parts. He says Gemini Bank. I said, cool. So I looked it up. Guess who runs Gemini Bank or is part of it?
Who?
The Winklevosses. I think they might
finally found their way in.
They might get theirs. They might end up winning in the long run. They might be 80 years old, and Facebook will. Who knows? I don't think Jeff Zuckerberg is ever going to go broke, but good for them. Anyway, they're involved as a clearinghouse for the CBOE, and then of course you got stuff going with the CME, and these are all going to be things that people are going to want to know about, and they're coming. Yesterday we had that Sedgwick 2X, and they basically put out a letter yesterday saying, screw it, we're not doing it. Bitcoin almost hit 8,000, and then everybody just dumped it, because they weren't going to get that, what we would call in our world a dividend. Part of the reason it came down, and now it's like right around 7,000. So we'll see.
It's a brave new world. We're going to have a lot more up on it, and including our Andrew's been reserving sites for us, folks, for all of the crypto news and everything else that we're going to be bringing out. That's exciting stuff, and it's going to be right here as well as on these new sites that Andrew's just been registering.
Yeah, so we'll keep that in check there. So busy. Busy.
All
right, well, why don't we just leave it at that? I think our listeners have enough to chew on for now.
All right. Well, remember, guys, you can subscribe through Google Play, iTunes, or YouTube. Please leave a comment and tell a friend about the program.